Welcome to Oddball. I'm Amin Elhassan. Charlotte Wilder is still out sick, or as one of our producers would say, that lazy bastard's still taking days off of work. How dare you? So we brought in Celtics superfan JuJu Gotti to help me close out the week. JuJu, welcome to Oddball.
I think that was a private conversation in text thread, brother.
No such thing. No such thing. That's private conversations. This is Oddball, baby. All right, we get started with the Summer League preview. It's finally here, JuJu. As soon as I'm done here, I'm going to the airport. I'm getting on a bird. I'm flying to Vegas. I'm doing my Elvis and Brian Lies 7, gotta set my hustle. I'm going to walk up there, check in, throw my bags in the room. I'm not even looking at anything else other than blackjack tables and bars. And that's it. That's all I got because Summer League is here. I am the unofficial mayor of Summer League. People call me this. The Summer League people call me this. This is my thing. This is my domain. This is my time to shine. And as such, it is my responsibility, JuJu, to give you like an orientation. Because last year you came to Summer League, but you came like last minute. You just ran in there. Yeah. You really didn't have like any direction. I didn't even know you were going to be there until you ran up on me on the concourse. So right. I'm here to give you kind of all the unofficial rules of the things you need to know. Are you ready?
I'm so ready. I need them.
Okay, so we'll do this almost like a little quiz, a little test, right? All right, so there's a couple of guys who had some standout nights in the earlier Summer League, the one that we don't really count, right? You've got Jack Gohlke for OKC. He hit a circus 3 in his only shot attempt on Tuesday. Meanwhile, UConn's Cam Spencer, he's playing for the Memphis Grizzlies. He went off on Tuesday night as well. Do either of these March Madness legends have a real shot in the NBA, JuJu?
Zach Gohlke, salute. Big fan. I think he got a better chance of being Purdue mascot because they can resemble, they got the same jawbone than the NBA player because he been doing, I think he went against, he played against Tyler Hero in high school. Like, he been doing this for a while. So I think that
Milwaukee.
Right. Unless he can get on the Warriors and spot up, shoot some, like in the corner only, I don't see his career being that lengthy. Salute to the good brother, though.
JuJu, you've already failed the first test. The first test of Summer League is, it doesn't matter what you do in Summer League. This has absolutely no bearing on your NBA career. Unless years later you blow up, in which case we'll go back to that Summer League game. Case in point, Jeremy Lin. Nobody gave a shit. He still bounced around. He ends up on the Knicks like 2 years later. And then he has his moment. And only then you could say, I remember I was at that Summer League game where he gave John Wall that work, which I was. Dang. And I did say that sentence in the moment. Absolutely. But at the time, I like that. Nobody cares. It's Summer League. All right. Some other stories we have. All right. Bronny and Dalton Knecht for the Los Angeles Lakers. Does anything short of domination quiet the Bronny critics, JuJu?
It's not, because like you say, bro, it's like if he has 100 points, they're going to be like, wow, you did a great job in Summer League, bro. And if he has 1 point, they're going to be like, bro, you couldn't even muster 10 points in Summer League? So it's no winning here at all.
You are a quick learner, JuJu. That's why you're here, man. Thank you for being on top of that. But what about Dalton Knecht? Do you think he'll be ready to compete on day one as a rotation player for the Lakers?
I absolutely do, dog. He showed me all I needed to see in the tournament last year against Purdue and all the SEC tournament. Like he was their go-to guy. Outside jumpers, slasher. Like, he's just, to me, I can't believe he fell to the Lakers. Like, Merry Christmas, LeBron.
I think that's one of the crazy things for JJ Redick is he's going to have to balance playing guys who are ready to play right now versus guys who could be able to contribute down the line, but maybe not so on the first day. So Dalton Knecht being able to at least have an NBA skill out the gate, that helps him tremendously. All right, we got to go to France. We got to go to the number 1 pick, Zachary Sachet, and number 2 pick, Alexar. Can they shut the critics up about it being a weak draft class? JuJu Gotti.
I think the Atlanta Hawks have dropped the ball as so many times, especially with the Luka Doncic, or however you say that in French. I think they are doomed, bro. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm the biggest supporter of the brother and just know his whole stats, but I saw a couple of other things. I might have took the number 2 pick if I was them. I don't see it. I can't see it myself.
He got a little bit more swag. I got to tell you. Research Shane, when they asked him, yo, what's your favorite part about Atlanta? He said the practice facility. Because he ain't been nowhere else in Atlanta. He's a little scared.
Magic City. You already know what's happening. Salute to the good sisters and brothers.
He's going to be lost. You cannot take him to Magic City not for at least like 6 months. You take him there like that first week, it's going to be a wrap. He going to quit. He gonna be
especially not in that suit. Not in that suit.
Hell no. All right, next up, we got our interview with Fran Fraschilla about this year's draft class. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Oddball. It's time now to revisit a conversation with one of my favorite people in all of basketball. It's Coach Fran Fraschilla. Charlotte and I spoke to him about this year's draft class, so go ahead and check it out. Coach, so we had the draft, and before I ask you about any prospects, I want to ask you about a conversation Charlotte and I had the other day, which is I can't remember a draft class where I felt as ignorant of the players. Yeah, and I explained to Charlotte, look, I've done something like 20 draft classes at this point in my career. There have been bad draft classes that we walked in, we said, this is not a good draft class. 2013 is one that comes to mind. Even though Giannis was in it, the number 1 pick was Anthony Bennett, and no one really knew who the number 1 pick was going to be.
Right.
But like we knew who the people were. We knew who Victor Oladipo was. We knew who Cody Zeller was. We knew the names. We just weren't enamored with any of them. This is the first time I feel like I don't, the guys are walking across the stage. I don't know who these people are. You're obviously, you know who these people are. Do you feel that at all, where there was a level of kind of ignorance among the general kind of population?
Well, I don't think it's just a general population. I think it was among NBA evaluators too. I mean, honestly, by the way, thank you for the kind comment. We've had many great talks back and forth about the draft and philosophies. And I'll give you the perfect example that summarizes this draft is Zach Edey. Okay. Yeah. Now, Zach Edey is legitimately 7'4" with a 7'10" wingspan, 300 pounds. And to me, maybe the greatest college center going back 30 years. I mean, he's the only 2-time Naismith Award winner since Ralph Sampson. And I don't think anybody really knows how good he's going to be, honestly.
Really?
And Memphis, oh, yeah, because he's a different style of big guy than what the league has right now, Charlotte. So should he, in the old days, we'd be looking at Yao Ming or even Shaq in some ways because of just sheer size. But like that's the perfect example, I mean, of I can't tell you how good he's going to be. He might not be able to get up and down the court in an NBA game.
Right.
And yet, when he does get up and down the court, I can tell you this. If he can get up and down the court and post up, he's going to be hard to guard, just like Yao was, because he's skilled and, he's a man and he's going to get people in foul trouble every night and he's going to seal you. And he's got a 9'8" reach, right? And so he can pretty much stand on his tippy toes. And yet, why didn't he go number 1? Well, we kind of know because of the style of the NBA right now. But also, I can't tell you if he's going to be really good or a complete bust. And I hope he's not a bust, but I think that's kind of he kind of represents what this draft was, and that is so much ignorance of how these guys are going to all develop. And then when you talk at the top of the draft, there's bust potential there, and then there's star potential in the same body, the same body. In the same body.
Coach,
right?
Question. Why do you think that is this year? Has something shifted? Is this a societal thing? Is this a basketball world thing? Is this the American versus the European? Like, what's going on?
No, it's a good question, Charlotte. I think it's random. I do. Amin mentioned 2013, and I can remember. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, like I talked to Robbie Hummel played with Anthony Bennett in Minnesota, and Robbie said, "Did you think you were going number 1?" He said, "No way." Right. He goes, "I was shocked." And as I think back to that draft, CJ McCollum went like in the top 10. Yep. Later on, Rudy went 27. And in fact, that was a trade. I think it was Utah and
Denver.
There was somebody Denver, right? There was a trade. Yeah. And so I can remember that draft thinking back going, yeah, I don't remember thinking Anthony Bennett was good enough to go number one, but that tells me there couldn't have been a lot of guys at the top. So Charlotte, I think it's random, but I also think we should talk about the French kids in a second.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think that's not random what's happening there. But I do think this draft was a randomly bad draft at the top. But I have to tell you, like after the first 6 or 7 picks, we say this and it's cliche, but I really believe it in my heart this year. From like 8 down to 40, you could have kind of thrown everybody in a hat and figured out, like, a guy going 38 could be the best player in the draft. But it's more so this year, I think, the randomness of it.
Yeah, Coach. So let's talk about the French kids. Obviously, 3 of the top 6 picks were French players, 4 in the first round, 5 overall in the draft. You go back last year with Wembanyama, with Bilal. This is their golden generation. The second time around, the last time it was Tony and Boris and Ronny Turiaf. Is this the new golden generation of French basketball?
It could be, but I'll tell you, this is. I would say that right now, and we've had many talks about international hoop. There's no Spanish generation coming up. There's a random good player here or there. There's no Serbian generation coming up. There's obviously some good players in the league, and I've tried to think about it. And I've said this. I don't know if I've told you this before, but I've always tried to do a deep dive on why. Right? But you and I do remember that it wasn't until, and I remember my first draft at ESPN was 2004. And that was the first year I went to the Euro camp. And when I went to the Euro camp, Donnie Nelson was there running it with Kiki Vandeweghe. And one of my former players, Pete Philo, was the guy that actually ran the camp. And Pete had a million connections in Europe. And so I got in on the ground floor. So the last 20 years, I think you'd agree, like this thing has exploded internationally. Absolutely. Right? Skidishvili came out in like 03 or 02. I don't remember. He was a bust. But I think in the last 20 years, international basketball, first of all, I think the scouting, you'll agree, there's more money invested by teams in that than there were 20 years ago, because there were a lot of teams back then I can remember that did not know what they were doing. Now, let's talk about the French. And I got to explain it this way. In Red Auerbach in the 50s, took a number of all-star teams to Europe. I remember they went to Yugoslavia one summer with, John Havlicek and, Sam Jones and whatever. And then in the 60s, U.B. Brown, Chuck Daly, Dr. Jack, Lou Carnesecca, Dean Smith, they would go around the world in the summer and do these clinics for federations, for the State Department. My friend Ettore Messina told me that he was the driver for Dean Smith.
No way.
Wow.
Yes. He said he was a 21-year-old young coach. This might have been like, I want to say late 70s. He picked Dean Smith up in Milan. Dean did clinics for a week, right? So we taught the game to the world. And in the last 20 years, they're teaching it back to us. Right? And so here's how the French come in. I believe because of immigration from the former French colonies. And if you go to France now, it doesn't matter where you go in France, you see a very multicultural population. Right. Not what I remember from the old movies, right? An overweight French guy who's smoking a cigarette and drinking wine, right? When you look in Pro A right now, it's a very athletic league. And a lot of it is because of second generation kids who came over, who happen to have the DNA, if you will, of basketball players, just like if you were in Detroit or New York. And so that's the explosion. It's great coaching, the federation, the way they build the foundation at the club level. I'm not saying it's better, because there's a lot about what we do is good, but I think that's part of why you see, as you know, I don't tell you, Charlotte, but Serbia, Lithuania, France now, Spain, They love the game. They teach it well, and they teach it well because we had great teachers teaching them. And by the way, it's not just France. It's overall in Europe, because I think 17 players were drafted that were born outside the United States. Right.
Coach, do you think if there were to be one thing that American basketball could take from that European development system right now, can you pinpoint it?
It's hard, Charlotte, because we're a democratic country. When I say democratic, I don't necessarily mean politics. I mean, like, we get to all do what we want, right?
Right.
Free country. And so, you'd be amazed at how many basketball experts we have in our country. There's thousands of them. Okay? And everybody's got the right way. And when it comes to training players, everybody's got the right way. So because we have so many experts, unlike in Lithuania where there's 3 million people and everybody goes to a couple of academies.
Okay.
It's the old, but we all learned the game. Those guys that learned basketball in the 40s, 50s, 60s, that's how they learned it. Fundamentals, chest passes, bounce passes.
Yeah.
And that's not that way anymore. We have a lot of different ways to teach the game. Some of them are really good. And some of them, are like, what is this guy doing?
Amen. My kid is playing basketball now. And so I see it all the time, Coach. Right, on that, like the 13-year-old, 14-year-old level. Like, what are they doing? I have no idea what we're doing here. But Coach, okay, so I do want to ask you, I live in Phoenix and I have a lot of people who are excited about Cody Williams, the brother of Jalen Williams. Now, on paper, Cody Williams, higher draft pick, and also went to a bigger school. Jalen went to Santa Clara, which is a fairly small school.
Right.
Cody Williams went to a Power 5 school, if you will. Is it possible that he's going to be better than his brother?
It's possible, but, there are similarities. Like, Jalen obviously, I think, surprised a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Credit Sam Presti. Like, in Sam, I trust. Like, if he didn't take him back, Edie, and he might have with 12, I would have said, uh-oh, what does Sam know that the rest of us don't, right? But with Cody's enormously talented. He had 3 different injuries this year, which really set him back. He was also on a pretty good Buffalo team that produced another first-round pick and a good second-round pick. And when I saw Cody, and I live right up the road now, he's enormously talented. He's one of those guys that doesn't look like he's playing hard, that he kind of glides.
Right.
And sometimes as a coach, that can frustrate you. He might have driven me crazy back in my younger days. But he also could be, there's some guys that just look like they're not going hard.
Right.
And they just get the job done. He could be that guy. Because I've had friends in the league when I said, what is it? And they go, hey, wait till you see him turn it on because he's enormously talented. So I'm guessing that's the Cody Williams week we're going to see. And in part because he's got the older brother.
Right.
Yeah.
That's already shown him the way of being an NBA player. And it's a great family from what I hear, military family. So I would bet on him, but there were nights where I said, where is he?
Right.
Coach, I know we talked about how there isn't really anyone out of the top 6 where you're like, oh, yeah, that guy. But if there had to be one, who would you point to?
That's a good question because, I got to get on this Reed Shepherd thing for a second, guys. Like, I did a lot of good things as a college recruiter. I was good. Okay. Yeah. I could tell who could play in most cases. The one thing I could never tell, I spent time in Ohio. And I can't tell whether this 6'2" white kid is the next Steve Nash, Mark Price, or some D3 kid. It was just, you know what I mean? I could never figure that out. I saw Scott Skiles in high school and didn't think he was good enough.
No way.
Okay.
Wow.
I swear. And by the way, he was an asshole. Admittedly.
They're a sneaky bunch, those 6'2" white guys.
Yeah. But so with Reed Shepherd, what you love about him, Charlotte, he's as good a shooter as come into this draft in maybe 10 or 15 years.
Right.
The numbers are scream, automatic, off the catch, off the dribble, behind screens, transition. He's got the whole thing. He certainly knows how to play. He's pretty good defensively off the ball. And then when you look at the measurables at the combine, Mark Jones and I one year, we had some fun because I'm like the guy that if you got and I grew up in a city, right, around a lot of black kids playing in the parks. And I always like to say that a black kid from New York is very cerebral and a white kid is very athletic. Okay. I like to break the mold. So I remember one time with Jonesy at the combine, Pat Connaughton goes like 41 vertical. Right. And I said, and I made this up on the air. I said, Jonesy, you told me at breakfast this morning he was the most athletic guy here, right. Pat Connaughton. Which he's turned out to be a very good athlete, obviously, because he's he could have played in major leagues. I'm not sure about Reed Sheppard. I think he could get swallowed up defensively. A lot of my NBA friends swear by him, and they think he could be the next Stockton, Price,
Right.
Nash.
Yeah.
One thing he can do is he is going to stretch the floor for a really talented Houston team, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they got a lot of pieces.
No, this is a team that's on the rise. And it's funny you talk about the athleticism at the combine thing. I always think of 2003, coach, the 2003 combine. Charlotte, that was LeBron James, that's Dwayne Wade, that was Chris Bosh. Do you know who the number one athlete at the combine was by the measurement?
No, I do not.
Luke Jackson from Oregon. Remember him, coach?
Wow.
Now, in a combine situation, touch that thing, run this dude, do a shuttle drill.
Yeah.
He was an amazing athlete.
Oh, my God.
The problem was when you gave Luke Jackson a basketball, all that athleticism went away, and he just turned into a regular white guy. So,
I mean, he was a bust. He was. I hate to say it. He's a bust. He was a bust, given how high he was taken.
Given how high he was taken, he did not pan out. The thing about a Reed Sheppard that I wonder about, though, is given that his dad, Jeff Sheppard, was a great player at Kentucky, had a cup of coffee in the league, does that help, right? In the same way that we talked about the other guy, Cody Williams having a brother to lead him.
Brunson,
yeah. Jalen Brunson is a great example.
And all the other guys. Yeah, I think listen, I mean, he's a great kid. I think when we said on the air, and if you'd have said to Reed Sheppard and Jeff Sheppard last August, hey, by the way, you're going to be the third pick in the draft, they would have thought you were nuts. Seriously, because all he wanted to do was go to Kentucky as a kid who dreamed about playing at Kentucky. And he was very highly regarded as a high school player, but I don't remember him being top 10, maybe top 30. But, and he shocked us. And, so I'd say he's going to a great spot, given that they've got a lot of guys that, first of all, Ime has brought a defensive mentality.
Yeah.
And they've got some toughness, and they've got athletes, and they've got Şengün at the center spot. And, they pretty much go 8 deep right now when you look at the young guys. Yeah. And so I think it might be end up being a really good spot, and he could take some heat off of people because they've got some downhill jokers.
Coach, last one before we get out of here. Every year there's a guy that you think, hey, man, this guy probably should have gone higher. Who's that guy?
I got, you know what?
You got a couple.
I'm looking at my list because I did love Ron Holland,
G League Ignite.
Yeah. I didn't want to love him. I didn't want to love him because I was like, come on, man, go to Texas. I could have seen you play. So he does the G League. And I wanted not to like him, but man, and I knew this about him from high school in Dallas, where I, lived most of the last 20 years. Kid's an absolute winner. He's a dog in the best sense of the word. He's got great pride. He plays hard. He's going to be a great defender, the best player in this draft in the open court. His ball handling is better than people think. He's got the escapability in the half court. Cannot shoot it. I mean, scares me. But I think if there's any guy that I think could be an NBA All-Star, he's got everything but the shot, But I'm a big fan of his, so he would come to mind. And I did like Rob Dillingham. I thought Minnesota did great. I love Terrence Shannon. Now that's a kid I knew the last 5 years, and he went through that that criminal situation that he was cleared. Very happy for him. He's a wonderful young man. He plays with joy, and I thought Minnesota did well. And why wouldn't they? Tim Connolly has great track record.
Right.
Dillingham to me is Lou Williams, and Terrence Shannon is a freight train in the open court. Both of them, I like guys who play with joy.
Right.
And those two guys play with joy. And I think Ant-Man, it's hard to say that Ant-Man it's hard to believe Ant-Man might be a mentor, but he's got such a play-filled personality that I could see the Ant-Man taking those two guys under his wing. Yeah. Which I think would be mostly good, mostly good.
Coach, you play with joy.
Yeah.
I live with joy.
Yeah, you do. You brought a lot of joy to Oddball.
Thanks, Coach. We really appreciate you.
You got it. Pleasure.
All right, that's going to do it for Oddball. Thanks again to JuJu Gotti for filling in for Charlotte Wilder. Salute, and we'll see you all at Summer League. And Michael Jordan's decoy, completely fraudulent.